Wow. So this is Guizhou province. Really is the land of mountains, eh? In the last episode, we followed in the footsteps of the long marchers as they set out from Yudao and then almost immediately ran into trouble at the bloody Battle of Xiangjiang. But after they were able to break out, they made it here, where they held the most important meeting during the history of the Long March, the Zunyi Conference.
Zunyi has always been an important place in this part of southern China. Around 1,000 years ago, it was a local seat of power and later on a major trading town. But what really put it on the map was the Long March. Today, it's one of the hottest sites for red tourism, in which people visit areas that are historically important to Chinese communism.
I gotta say, this town is really quite, I don't know if it's appropriate to use the word cute, but it's very pretty. I mean, it's probably one of the greenest towns I've seen in China. And you can obviously tell it's very hilly because of how narrow all of the houses are. But yeah, I like this place.
I've only been here for a few minutes and I've already spotted at least 3 signs for the Zunyi conference site. Every year, millions of tourists come here to visit the former merchant's house that held the game-changing meeting. It was here that the leadership finally reviewed the problems the Red Army had faced since they'd begun the Long March. The meeting heralded not only a change of tactics, but also of the core leadership.
I would have thought that, it would be a bigger meeting room, more elaborate, but it was this meeting that the fate of modern China. I mean, it took them 3 days to go over all of the specifics, and during that time, Mao came back into power and essentially decided the fate of the Long March, and it was all done here from these 20 chairs.
As a result of the conference, Mao became one of the core leaders of the Communist Party of China. It was a turning point not only for him, but also for the Long March. Mao's idea to employ guerrilla tactics instead of conventional warfare saw the Red Army outsmart the KMT at the crossing of the Chishui River and in later battles.
Wow, look at this. It's always really interesting to see this kind of architecture. Even though this place was pretty much completely surrounded by mountains, it was also very open in terms of trade, and that's where you get these fusions of Chinese and Western architecture. I mean, if you look at the arches, that's obviously a Western influence, and so are the stained glass windows. And even then, during the 1930s, this place was pretty modern.
Looking like a behemoth next to our mansion is the Zunyi Conference Memorial Museum, one of the largest Long March museums. Inside is a comprehensive collection of everything to do with Zunyi and the Long March. Through archive photos, interactive maps, wax figures, and even a holographic reenactment of the conference itself, tourists like me are able to learn about, if not relive, the struggles and stratagems of the Long March.
Oh.
我们看到这一张照片，就是28年的遵义老城全景。
Wow. 很漂亮啊，当时。
对，遵义它也是红军在长征时期攻克的最大一座县城，当时人口有3万多人。
At Zunyi, the Long Marchers finally had time for a breather.
我们看到的墙上呢，就是文物展牌，是当年红军留下来的宣传标语。当年红军像这样的宣传标语呀，是走到哪儿写到哪儿。
那不是遵义的所有的房子都写上这些了吗？
对，所以说红军的宣传工作呢是做得十分好的呀。
Apparently, every literate soldier wrote a slogan a day, so maybe they can be forgiven for the occasional piece of sloppy handwriting.
You know, they say one of the best weapons to use during war is propaganda, and this picture pokes fun at the KMT guys, and it says, KMT guys, how many times a day do you get shouted at by your superiors? It's pretty funny, actually.
From Zunyi, we head to Maotai, an hour and a half's drive away.
So we're driving along the route taken by the Long Marchers as they headed towards the town of Maotai in the Chushui Valley. Obviously we're having a much easier time of it thanks to these modern motorways, but it's taking us through some absolutely gorgeous backcountry. I mean, look at it.
After Zunyi, it was decided that the Long March would head north into Sichuan province. The best way to do this was to follow the Chushui River and find a point where they could cut across. As the Red Army descended through the valley, they reached what was then the village of Maotai. Like Zunyi, it was about to be catapulted into the limelight.
So here we are, this is the Chushui River. So this was the goal of the Red Army. They wanted to make a crossing here, which is why they came to Maotai town, which in China is pretty famous for its liquor. So when the Long Marchers arrived, the locals treated them with really strong stuff like 70-something%. And not only was it used to disinfect wounds, but it also raised everyone's spirits because after all, who doesn't like a good drink?
To the Long Marchers, Maotai was a panacea. Zhou Enlai, China's first premier, later proclaimed that the Long March was a success partly thanks to Maotai. He made it the national drink of China, famously toasting US President Nixon with it in 1972. Although the town of Maotai produces various types of liquor, one brand dominates the market. Helpfully, it's also called Maotai, and its list of accolades includes winning gold at the 1915 World Expo.
这个就是咱们街上能买到的茅台吗？
对，53度的飞天茅台酒。茅台酒呢，它是微黄色的，口液呢是晶亮剔透。闻香的时候呢，你首先可以感受到它很突出协调的一个酱香。接下来呢就是尝，
我最喜欢的部分。
咽下去以后，立马张口吸气，闭口呼气。茅台酒非常的纯正。
I feel like I've done it wrong because I kind of feel a bit like a fish right now just doing this.
第一口的感觉会有点苦，多品几次，茅台它的口感很丰富。
It's good. I mean, there really is no way to describe it other than trying for yourself. It's strong, it's fiery, but mellow at the same time. And you can taste the grains that went into making this thing. It's beautiful.
Maotai is a kind of baijiu or distilled sorghum liquor. Like Marmite, you either love it or you hate it.
现在很多国外的调酒师都尝试用中国的白酒来调制鸡尾酒，酱香的味道太重了。
对。
然后呢，它酱香的一个味道很丰富、很复杂，就需要把其他的味道来掩盖一下它的味道，但是又不能完全把它的味道给抢掉。
Oh, here we go. That's beautiful. Looks like liquid gold instead of liquid fire. That's good. That's surprisingly good. It's sweet so as to not cover up but accentuate one of Maotai's flavors. And it's very, very refreshing. Cheers.
Coming up next, I get another fiery taste of this nation's best-loved tipple and get taken on a trip down memory lane by someone who personally met the Long Marchers. Back in town, I head out to explore some of Maotai's other distilleries.
This place really is all about the liquor. I mean, not only do you smell it in the air as soon as you come here, every single shop sells alcohol. It's a drinker's paradise.
As recently as the Long March, almost every household here distilled its own liquor. I'm heading to one such family business.
Oh wow, something smells pungent. So it's a bit sour with a hint of vinegar. It's going to be interesting.
This is the Tailiang Distillery, one of the many outfits here making jiangxiang baijiu, which has a particularly powerful aroma of soy sauce.
这现在是我们的除酵工序，就是我们酒糟留在家里面发酵35年之后，我们把它取出来，拿去蒸酒。
咱们料理一般有什么东西啊？
我们主要就是高粱，
酱香的白酒都是放高粱。
对，因为高粱产的酒它比较香。
然后这就去拿过去。
对，他们拿过去开始蒸酒。 看到这个快冒烟了之后啊，就把酒倒下去通过蒸汽把酒蒸出来。这个环节是很重要的。有的地方装太紧了它这个地方蒸汽就出不来它就不出酒。
所以他们要这样子撒。
对，全部都撒开，轻匀薄准。
我能抓一手这个吗？
可以，抓试一下，讲一趟就有
哦，
是不是有很大的酒味啊
？Oh my god! You could get drunk off this thing just by smelling it.
I'm pretty sure you can actually get drunk off the fumes in here. There are 4 main types of baijiu in China, and while others may incorporate ingredients like wheat or rice, jiangxiang baijiu only uses sorghum.
这个现在是能喝了吗？
我现在能喝了，
我可以尝一口。
可以。
这个酒现在有多少度啊？
现在就是75度左右。
75度的酒。I don't think I want to drink 75% alcohol liquor. Oh my god, that's like moonshine.
喝一瓢。
Oh my god. Oh my god. I didn't even drink it yet. It just the overpowering smell of the alcohol just went straight to my Jesus. That is, it's really good. I mean, it's very I think it's kind of going to my head. There's a hint of soy, really bready, very malty. And my god, that stuff is liquid fire. Like my gut is just burning right now. Oh, feeling a little bit dizzy right now.
To the uninitiated, the liquor feels like a punch to the nose. Think of it as extra strong vodka. However, a lot of work goes into making a batch of jiangxiang baijiu. In order to produce its bold, rich aroma, the sorghum mixture must go through 9 distillations, 8 fermentations, and 7 iterations of the production cycle. Each time the mixture is heated to 150 degrees to vaporize the alcohol inside, and then lift out to cool. The whole process takes an entire year to complete. So it's no wonder then why a bottle of brand name Maltai goes for almost 100 British pounds.
有酱烟酒它就7试酒，那么1、2次酒就比较注重酸涩味，酱味不是多浓，有3、4、5次，都是酱味比较突出的。6、7次的话，它都是焦香味比较好。
I still can't tell the difference.
Obviously, I'm an idiot. This is quality stuff right here. Xu Taoquan blends his baijiu with surgical precision, adding differently aged batches to the mix, depending on what kind of flavor he wants to produce. This process can take anything from a day to a week, and not every blend is a success. There's a lot of trial and error involved.
It has so many different levels of taste. It leaves this kind of fragrance, this floral fragrance just kind of emanating from your mouth. And I think this is the liquor talking, because I've never been this eloquent before in my life.
酱烟型的酒，只有茅台镇才能做出来个正宗的味道。
It might sound like bragging, but judging by all the distilleries here, there must indeed be some truth to Mr. Xu's assertion.
So we're traveling along the Chishui River, and I keep seeing distilleries like just everywhere. One of the reasons, obviously, is because no factories are allowed upstream of Maltai, but the main reason really is because of the climate. It's clammy because there's no wind, and the fact that there's no wind actually is really good for bacteria, really good for fermentation, and of course the water's very clean too. So it makes for great alcohol, terrible living because it's so hot.
Continuing along the Chishui River, our next stop is Tucheng, where the Red Army sought to make a crossing. In this mountainous landlocked part of China, rivers were often the best way of getting around, which is why every quay or wharf along the Chishui River eventually grew into a market town. In Tucheng, the tradition continues in the form of weekly markets.
竹笋，
生菜
从哪儿拿过来的呀？
这咱们山上来过，不是山上的南芝山。
哪个地方来的？
北京的。所以好多没见过嘛。
好多没见过。
我们见的都是。
I'm sure I'm as much of a novelty to them as they are to me, especially since I can't put a name to half the things they're selling. And judging by all the bamboo backpacks I'm seeing around here, there are still locals who live off the mountains. Bamboo would have been something they'd be able to barter for salt from the barges hailing from neighbouring Sichuan province, as Guizhou doesn't produce the condiment. I'm here to meet a gentleman who not only worked the salt trail, but also personally met the Red Army.
谢谢。哎，您好，您好。哇，您高寿啊
？93了。
哇塞！那红军来的时候您在是吧
？12岁了
12岁的时候。
他就在你门口抱着睡，不进你的屋，他要你找个开水吃，说小伙子你进来找嘛，摆头儿，说我喊你进来吃的，没关系的。我们不敢进来，我们有制度的。
这其实改变了当地老百姓对红军的印象，是吧？
He tells me that when the Long Marchers first arrived, the locals were afraid. Previously, KMT officers had beaten them if they weren't served food and tea. It was the good manners of the Red Army that won over people here, who eventually put the soldiers up in their own homes. The Red Army also ended up using the old salt trail, which ran alongside the Chishui River and led to markets and warehouses such as the Salt Merchants Guild here in Tucheng.
背着盐，哇！
以后背起来呀，30里路，背来呢，城市的区别，盐仓就在这对门，那里就是会计师。
您原来背盐，它一筐盐是多么重啊
？2本2斤。
哇，相当重了。
相当重啊。
The salt trail began in Sichuan and ended here in Guizhou province. It was made possible thanks to the Chishui River, which was Guizhou's only channel for importing goods.
这就是当时咱们走的那个路，是吗？那当年红军过赤水河时候也是走的这个路吗？
走这个路。
都是山路啊，那时候。
山路那个这很窄的。
肯定特别难走。
危险哦，这9路红旗大了。
冬天呢更危险了吧？还是草鞋。
底下还有一块铁板，铁板底下有4个钉钉条，它就不扭。
对，能抓得住吗？
你说你不抓这4个钉钉，光这个就要抓紧走。
Just trying to imagine what it must have been like during his time to have to carry over 100 kilograms worth of salt. Mountainous path that's prone to flooding, to landslides. I guess 80 years ago, when the Long Marchers took this route, it was just as dangerous, just as precarious.
Coming up next, I learn about one of the most impressive reversals of fortune during the Long March, and behold the marvels of bamboo. The Chishui River was the site of one of the greatest military mind games played during the Long March.
Let's talk strategy. You know, this took me a really long time to figure out, but this is basically the route of the Long March. From Yudel, the Red Army left on the epic journey. They took this route all the way to Guilin, which we covered in the last episode. From there, they headed into Guizhou province and they did the 4 crossings of the Chishui River. The first one was done here at Tucheng. When they crossed over, they found the KMT waiting for them, so they had to double back, do the second crossing at Lintan, where they found the KMT once again waiting for them. So then they made another crossing at Maotai, and from there, they doubled back again to Erlangtan. So it was actually a really smart move because they basically led the KMT in a spiral. It was a wild goose chase, and they were able to confuse them long enough to make their way down to Yunnan province and eventually head into Sichuan province.
Pride in the Long March is still strong, as we can tell from these volunteer musicians. They're always happy to oblige you with a song.
Oh, this is interesting. 哎，您好。你好。哎，您好，我可以点歌吗？
可以。
咱们有没有就是当地赤水河的歌？
有，赤水河情歌嘛。
travelling along the Chishui River has become the thing to do. These days, you'll often see coachloads of out-of-towners cruising along the rust-coloured river, taking pictures and stopping off at scenic spots along the way. But then, just look up at all these intimidating bridges and you'll realise how difficult it must have been to tame this terrain. As we near the end of Guizhou's stretch of the Chishui River, the landscape changes. It becomes more ancient, more primordial. And here at Foguangyan Scenic Area, we'll find the famous Chishui Danxia landforms.
Oh, that's good.
Foguangyan is actually just one of several Danxia landforms around the Chishui Valley. Together with the other Danxia landscapes of China, they make up one of UNESCO's World Heritage Sites. Essentially, Danxia are sandstone cliffs that have weathered eons of erosion to become spectacular natural sculptures. They're a reminder of just how old our planet is.
Look at this place! Oh, wow! Yeah, I am sweating like a pig, but damn, this place is gorgeous. I kept asking why the Chishui River is called Chishui. It turns out that Chu means red, because every time it rains, Danxia landform, which is made out of sandstone, kind of starts running, and all of the sandstone starts running into the river, turning it red. But the coolest thing about this place is that this is from the Cretaceous period. It's the earliest Danxia landform in the entire world, and it was around when dinosaurs was around. And maybe this waterfall was around when T-Rexes were around. Can you even imagine that?
My bad, I got a bit overexcited. As we head down from the mountain, the weather takes a turn for the worse.
Oh my god! Okay, so I know now why the Chishui River is the Red River. Oh, holy Jesus. It's raining really heavily right now, and all of a sudden these waterfalls have formed right next to us. If this gets any worse, the road will be flooded. I'm really quite worried for our car, for our crew. Fingers crossed, guys.
This was the first time I'd seen what happens when a river bursts its banks. Luckily, we were able to get out before the roads were closed and made it to Datong, our last stop on the now swollen Chishui River.
I've been to many ancient towns before, but this place really is the real deal. I mean, look at these houses, they're ancient and they're still in use.
This place almost has a dreamlike quality to it, like something out of a fantasy movie. Everything is just so photogenic, which makes me selfishly happy to be the only tourist in town. In actual fact, I've come here looking for someone. A lady who can show me some intangible cultural heritage. Bamboo weaving, in fact. Since practically everyone in Datong lives along its one main street, this makes my search a lot easier. In China, knowing how to weave bamboo is not all that special, particularly up in the mountains. But Our Lady doesn't just weave bamboo. She creates pictures so intricate, you can't even tell they're made of bamboo until you're up close.
您编的这个图案是什么呀？
毛泽东的诗词，长征诗。
哇，太精致了。
I still can't believe it's made of bamboo.
清去掉。
Ah! Oh, God! Having a lot of trouble sitting here because this is like scratching nails on a blackboard. Oh my God.
After this blood-curdling step, the freshly shaven bamboo is split into strips, which will then be further stripped down.
周围我看都是竹林，那是不是都是一种竹子啊？
不是，有很多种，在我们这里有几十种竹子，我们都是用那个瓷竹，竹节长，韧性好，纤维比较细。
哇
We only want bamboo that's about 1 to 2 years old, not too soft, not too stiff.
So take a look at this. I mean, it's incredible. This is, you know, just one piece of bamboo, normal thickness, and then this was cut out of that, and it's already thin, you know, it's already almost as thin as one strand of hair, but then she's managed to give it 4 split ends, and it can now split into 4 more pieces like this. Look. Uh-oh.
没事。
还有是吗？
是，大拇指把它撑出去，
哦，
同时用力，你看，它是用这样的，要求是这样。
Oh wow, this is an art in itself. That is beautiful. 您用了多少年学会了这个呀？
学会的一年多就可以的，但如果说要做好的话，那就要很多年。我到现在已经做了20多年了，不断的练出来的，还在。
The final step before she begins weaving is to press down on the bamboo with a little comb made of nails. This produces silky strands of fibre.
Wow, this has 0 weight to it. I feel like I'm holding a feather. It's so incredibly delicate.
If you can't already tell, creating a bamboo picture requires an immense amount of patience and skill. It's like trying to sew with 100 needles at the same time, eking out a pattern strand by strand. This piece of calligraphy will take her a month to complete. Her best work took her many times that.
Oh my god.
是吃水的一个水码头。
Crikey. Even without knowing that it's made of bamboo, it already looks fantastic. But then when you come up close and you see those super fine strands of bamboo, it's just an incredible work of art. I just never thought bamboo would be able to be used in such a way. It's mind-blowing.
It's quite fitting that her finest work is of the Chushui River, since the fate of so many towns and villages in this area have always depended on it.
It was raining all of last night, and then today, look what's happened to the Chushui River. It's become this boiling, raging sea that threatens to flood the towns and villages that line its banks. And you know, it's this incredible force of nature. It's awe-inspiring, but it's pretty frightening at the same time. And even though Sichuan province is just on the other side, the Red Army made 4 crossings of this river and eventually took the long way around, going south into Yunnan and then back up into Sichuan, which is our next destination for the next episode of Travelogue.